Alright, we're in Unit 2, Lesson 2. This is the addition of real numbers. Again, real numbers, any number that can be represented on a number line. And your two objectives are written there, so I would pause this video, get them written down, and then let's get going. Okay, first thing they're going to ask you to do is to use a number line to find the sum. Okay, so I want to add up 2 plus negative 6 plus 4. And yes, if it tells you to use a number line to find it, you do have to do that, even if you can do this problem in your head. Okay, so first thing I gotta do is make a number line. Gotta have arrows on the ends like this one does, although it's got to have numbers, which I'm missing, so we gotta put them in here. And -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Okay, again, use a number line to find the sum. So here's how I'm going to do that. I got to represent each one of my numbers, and I'm just going to travel on the number line like it tells me to. So this says positive 2. So I'm going to start at 0 and travel positive 2 spaces. So I'm going to go 1, 2. Okay, and there's positive 2. Then, from where I left off, I need to travel in the negative direction 6 spaces. Okay, that's what -6 means. It means I'm going to travel in the negative direction 6 spaces. So from where I left off, I'm going to travel -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces in the negative direction. Okay? Then I need to travel positive 4. So I need to travel 4 spaces in the positive direction from where I left off. So I'm going to start here and travel 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces and tell where that puts me. Well, I ended right here at 0. So my answer is 0. Okay? Again, I know you can do that in your head, a lot of you should be able to, okay, if we're in algebra class, but for the sake of doing what the book tells you to, use a number line when it asks. And this is kind of what I want your diagram to look like. Okay, start at 0, just count how many spaces in the correct direction, and then when you leave off at a spot, start there and count in the other direction or whichever direction you need to keep going. Okay, should be easy enough. Okay, quite a bit going on this slide here, but we also, obviously, it's not very smart of us to have to use a number line to add numbers. I mean, it's a good tool to use if you're confused on it and you need to do the counting and stuff, but most of us algebra students are good at doing that kind of math in your head. So we need to understand the rules of addition so we don't have to use a number line and we can just kind of add these numbers in our head. Okay, so here's the rules for addition. Make sure you get them down. If you want to add numbers that have the same sign, so I'm talking a positive plus a positive or a negative plus a negative, it's easy. You add the numbers together and then keep the common sign. Okay, so let's look over at this example. Say I want to combine -4 and -5. They have the same sign, so I'm going to add the numbers 4 and 5 and get 9 and keep the common sign. Well, they were both negative, so now I've got -9. Well, I'm not done because now I have to add on -3. And again, I've got a negative plus a negative. They're the same sign. Okay, so I'm going to add the numbers. 9 plus 3 is 12. And I'm going to keep the negative sign. Okay, easy peasy. Should be a piece of cake. If I want to add numbers with opposite signs coming down here now adding numbers with opposite signs, I subtract those numbers and then I keep the sign of the number with a larger absolute value. So let's talk about what that means here, okay, in terms of these examples, or this example. 3 plus -9 comes first. Those are different signs, so I find the difference. I subtract them. 9 minus 3 is 6. Okay? Then I'm going to keep the sign of the number with a larger absolute value. So I'm going to keep the sign of the number that's farthest away from 0. Well, what's farthest away from 0? 3 or -9? -9 is farthest away from 0, so I'm going to keep the negative sign with it. Then I'm going to add on 4. Okay, -6 plus 4, again, they're different signs, so I subtract the numbers. 6 minus 4 is 2. And -6 is farther away from 0 than 4, so I keep the negative sign. Okay, and those are the rules for adding integers. Let's keep moving on. Okay, next we have to talk about the properties of addition. Okay, first one is called the commutative property. And what the commutative property states in variables is that a plus b equals b plus a. All that's saying is that I can switch the order in which I add things, and it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't affect the sum. So let's look at an example. Let's do 3 plus 4. Commutative properties saying that if I have 3 plus 4, or a plus b in this case, I can switch those around and it doesn't affect the sum. So 3 plus 4 is the same as 4 plus 3. Well, 3 plus 4 is 7, 4 plus 3 is 7. That should make sense. Okay, go to the next one, associative property. What the associative property says is it doesn't, the order in which I add things does not matter, so how I group them doesn't matter. So I could take, in this scenario where I'm adding three numbers, I'm adding a, b, and c, I could add a plus b first and then add c, or I could add b plus c first and then add a, and it doesn't change the sum. Okay, so again, let's look at an example here. We'll do 3 plus 4 plus 5. So I'm adding those three numbers together. Okay, the associative property says it doesn't matter if I add 3 plus 4 first and then add 5, or if I add 4 plus 5 first and then add 3. Okay, well, let's think about this here. 3 plus 4 is 7, then 7 plus 5 is 12. Or over here on this side, we would have to do the 4 plus 5 first. 4 plus 5 is 9, and then plus 3 is still 12. Doesn't make a difference what order I add things in. That's what the associative property says, or how I group things. Identity property of addition. Identity property just states that any number plus 0 is itself. Okay, so 3 plus 0 is still itself, 3. Or 4 plus 0 is still itself, 4. Okay, that's pretty easy. The inverse property, also known as the property of 0, states that if I add a number and its opposite, I get 0. So for example, 3 plus negative 3, 3 plus its opposite gives me 0. Alright, and the last property that we want to talk about is called the property of equality. Okay, what the property of equality states is that I can add the same number to both sides of an equal sign and not change the sum. Okay, so let's stop and think about this here. Okay, if I had 3 plus 4 on one side, and over on the other side I had 5 plus 2. Okay, those are the same thing. Okay, I've got 7 on one side and 7 on the other side. Now the property of equality says that these sides will remain equal, they will remain balanced if I add the same thing to both sides. So let's say I threw on 2 on the front of this side. Well, now 2 plus 3 plus 4, that's 9. That's not equal to 7 on the other side. So to equal this out, I would have to add that same number to the other side, 2. So basically, property of equality is saying if I want these two sides to remain equal, I have to add the same thing to both sides, and they will remain equal to each other. Okay, let's move on. Okay, and what we need to do with these is on your assignment, they're going to ask you which property is illustrated. Okay, so what are they showing us? So this first one, okay, this says 1.4 plus negative 2.6 plus 3.1. Well, think about what you would do first if you were going to solve this using the order of operations. Okay, there's no parentheses. The only thing, there's parentheses around this just to make sure we know it's negative to separate it from the plus sign. So the first thing I would do is this, okay, and do those first. So that's like having these in parentheses. Well, this one is saying instead of adding those two together first, I can add these two together first, okay, and that property was the associative property. I mean, it doesn't matter what order I group those numbers in, okay, I can still get the same answer. Next one says negative 1/2 plus 3 plus 1/2, and then it equals negative 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 3. Well, let's look at what happened here. The only thing that happened was they took the 3 and the 1/2 and they switched them around. Okay, do you remember what property says that when we add numbers we can switch them in any order and it doesn't matter? That one was the commutative property. Okay, and the next one. Well, 50 plus negative 50 equals 0. that property that said anytime we take a number and its opposite we get 0, that was called the inverse property. And the last one, 100 plus 0 equals 100. Anytime we take a number and add 0, we get the same thing. That was the identity property. Okay, so again, part of your assignment is going to ask you, what property am I showing, just to make sure you got them down. Okay, happy homeworking.